And of course, we're here again, and it's a beautiful day. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us on Flipside. It's already the holidays for many. I know some people are still going to work, but our children are already preparing for their first term examination, so they will soon be on holiday. But outside of Nigeria, they don't just say holiday when you're already on a break, but the season is generally holidays. That's what they call it. Well, Christmas and New Year is what I'm talking about. So much partying, so much festivities. And when it's the holiday season, it comes with a lot of tension, a lot of stress. It could be financial, it could be mental, it could be emotional, because many will be celebrating this year with a lot of changes. People died this year in their millions. So those who are used to celebrating with a particular partner might have to do it alone. But anyway, we'll talk about all of these concerns for the holidays on the show today. My name is Daisy Lira Sikidi, but we're going to break quickly. When we come back from that break, you'll get to know our topic, meet my guests, and trust me, you'll be learning a whole lot on today's edition of Flipside. You don't want to miss out on any part of it, so stick around. All right, thank you so much. Of course, it's Flipside, and we're talking about Christmas, safety, and holiday concerns. Christmas, safety, and holiday concerns. Well, Christmas safety is an issue that burns from late November to mid-January. Yes, a lot of things happen this period. Travels spikes. We have family gatherings. We'll have parties, organizations having their end-of-year dinners. So many activities at the end of the year. Well, while this holiday might really look a little bit different, we still have many people making these plans regardless of the changes. What are the best ways they should go about achieving all of the merriments they want to get and still be safe? Those are the things we're going to be looking at today. We need to give advice to ensure that your family is safe. My name is Daisy Lira Sikidi, and I'm not alone on the show. I have someone you've seen on TV a lot of times. Like anytime we want to talk about safety and Red Cross related talks, he's always here. When he's not here, you have Wilson Echo Magazine. But today, that's not his name. I have Ogenetejiri Owigo in the house. He is the branch communications coordinator, Red Cross Edo State chapter. Good to have you on the show. It's Edo State branch. Edo State branch.
But I forgive you.
Thank you. Good to have you on the show.
It's a pleasure to be
again.
Here. It's always a pleasure to be here. Good afternoon, Nigerians. Good afternoon, Benin City.
All right. Christmas, holiday safety concerns. This is a new one for us. We've never celebrated Christmas with COVID-19, but this year will be the first.
Yeah.
Now, celebrating first Christmas with COVID-19, what are the implications?
Okay, so from where I sit to observe, I think it's going to be very different. One of the reasons why is the peculiarities of COVID-19, the many restrictions that come with it. I want to state very categorically, a lot of persons, from my observation, do not think that COVID-19 is real, because there's this distrust with government, there's this friction between government and the people, and some persons, they are paranoia altogether. There's always this grand conspiracy that they think government is trying to hatch. But as most of our advert jingles would say, you don't want to catch COVID-19 to believe that it is real, right? It's not very interesting, especially if you have other more sublime health conditions, present with COVID-19. It would react to make it even worse. But speaking particularly about the U-tide and how COVID-19 would affect, I think first COVID-19 is teaching us to change behaviors, and it's a wake-up call, because a lot of Nigerians do not think that certain things should be measured or evaluated. I'll give you an example. one age-long Christmas tradition is to travel back to the village.
Very important.
Right? Yeah, it's a travel back to the village, and for some others, it's to visit. So you've eaten in the house, and then you have to go to other neighbors on the streets. You know, you dress children in their Christmas clothes, and then they go from house to house, eating as much as they can accommodate. The reality is, it implies that they will mix with people. All right, with COVID-19, the concern has always been interaction with people. So some of the things that we have tried to do, especially speaking from a Red Cross perspective, is to communicate the risk. We still have teams doing in a number of local government, up to 20 persons, doing risk communications in the communities, letting them understand that certain things they do will predispose them to the risks. Now, you see the way we're seated within the recommended distance, 6 feet apart. That way, I can stretch my hand, you can stretch your hand, and we still won't make contact. Because science has explained that it takes a certain distance. The virus can, the droplets rather, from our nose and from our mouth can travel over a certain distance. So if we sit within the recommended distance, it won't travel that far. And then we can each be safe. Right, which is the reason why I can comfortably come on air and not wear a mask, because I know that we're sitting at a recommended distance. Exactly. So we still won't touch. You can't even get that on frame. So it's safe enough for anybody, right? But when you now go from house to house, or you travel down to the village, there's this tendency to be very comfortable, right? And the major risk, in my opinion, is you don't know where everybody else has been. You don't know who everybody else has met. So I'm here today. You don't know if I've done risk-com to one community where everybody else has been, exposed. You don't know if I've been handling victims or patients or whatever who have been exposed to COVID-19. So if you just assume that he looks healthy, I could probably come and give you the virus. So with the U-tide and the fact that people are traveling from place to place, and also that persons will be visiting other persons. I carry a plate of food and bring to your house. I probably did not sanitize my hand because I just am that complacent or comfortable with myself. Some of these practices that are associated with the U-tide will predispose persons to the increased risk. Just last night we had about 500 or more cases that were announced. So it's difficult if we cannot, because for persons who think that government is scamming with the statistics that they are putting out, you ask yourself, when was the last time you followed the protocol to the end? When was the last time I wore a mask? When was the last time, even for our viewers who are listening or watching right now, when was the last time you washed your hands? When was the last time you used the sanitizer? Do people even buy sanitizers anymore? So these are the factors that will determine whether we can flatten the curve as regards COVID-19. So the practices that are associated with the U-tide will predispose persons to increased risk. So it will not be weird or out of place if we begin to see spikes in the figures in January. It is what we do in December that will determine whether or not we'll get down to zero or we'll continue to see an increase in cases.
Interesting. Okay, well, it's a case of two diseases to think about as we're celebrating Christmas. Let's see. Are you sure my fist? Oh, it won't touch.
So we still have extra space.
Extra space. Okay. We're still dealing with COVID-19, but there's also another disease that seems to trend this period, and that's Lassa fever.
Yeah.
So how do we handle all of this plus Lassa at the corner?
Okay. So the thing about Lassa fever is, I was on radio here on Tuesday, and I spoke extensively about Lassa fever. The truth of the matter is, from data available to us from the NCDC, which also handles Lassa fever because an infectious disease, is put that Lassa fever the cases increase usually around November to May. The reason why is because this is dry season. So the rodents that are implicated in the spread of Lassa fever are most active because, well, for some instances it's hot in the bush, bushes are dying. So they are leaving the bushes and coming to houses. So the persons most at risk, for here in Edo, it's relatively endemic here, especially in the Auchi, Irwa, and some parts of Edo North. It's endemic there. The reason why is the topography and the demography of persons. If you look at the settings there, it would appear that it supports these sort of conditions, and it's no little wonder that Iroi, the hospital, is very close to that area, the viral reference lab. Now, persons there need to understand the peculiarity of the risk that they face. I'll give you an example. If you are used to eating bushmeat, some of this bushmeat includes maybe giant rat, one we call rabbit, and you're not worried about how it is cooked. Some of these things, they supposedly dry it, and by the time you're purchasing it, it's cold. So people do not think about how it is actually cooked. So they don't think about whether it gets to that temperature. These are all risk factors that people need to understand. Then we're not going to talk about the fact, or we should also talk about rather, the fact that persons, especially in this December, will keep rice. Because obviously you need to cook. Yes, yes. Even I myself, I like rice. Maybe not as much as the next person, but it's not a bad thing. But you keep rice, and this rice comes in bags. It looks tidy, it looks easy to handle, but when you realize that if there's water or fluid generally coming in contact with that bag, it will soak the rice. Now imagine a rat, small rat, running across your house, urinating on that bag of rice. It will definitely seep in. Now, these are the things that predispose people. These are the things that propagate this Lassa fever virus that we're talking about. So, in Lassa fever virus, the causative agent is directly seen, and it's something that we know and we can control. Rat. So it stands to common sense that what we should be focused on doing to ensure that we bring some of these figures down is to manage these rats. So if you have holes in maybe your nets or in your windows or under your door, areas where these rats can easily enter your house, you want to take care of that. If you already have rats living with you in the house, I don't think it would be out of place to get a cat, for example, or, well, because of the peculiarity. I can see your face.
Oh my God. Did you just tell people in Benin City to buy cats?
Yeah, I understand how that sounds, because people are very touchy about these things.
Yes.
So some persons get some form of pesticide, right? So that may work. But again, when you use pesticides, persons want to put that in small cooked food, bread and things in that nature. But you need to realize that while you're doing that, you want to also protect maybe toddlers in the house, young children. So you don't put a rat poison with food in some area, maybe in bread, and leave it carelessly abandoned, and the child picks it up and puts it in the mouth. So we don't try to solve one problem and cause another. So that's another thing. So beyond the direct blocking of the holes and crevices where these rodents come through, you want to also do some of these proactive measures. If it's a matter of taking care of the what's it called now, the bushes around your house, there are a lot of measures. But what we're interested in is, can you take care of the rodents or the environment that encourages the rodents? So I believe if we do that, we can be better. And then also, it's important that I mention that these two conditions, whether it's COVID or it's Lassa fever, the presentation is similar in some respect. We live in a country where people feel whenever you run temperature or a fever, it's malaria. And these two conditions will present with a bit of fever in most cases, right? Along with all the other accompanying signs and symptoms, right? But they will present with some levels of fever. So we cannot directly say that every time you have a fever, it is malaria. So that's something else that people need to be wary of. So you can't conclude that every time I have a fever, it is malaria. So I'll just take one or two over-the-counter medications and I relax and say it's okay. We have to have that culture where we seek medical advice from our caregivers, our healthcare professionals, so they can guide us accordingly and tell us to do a test. Because these two conditions are only confirmed by laboratory testing. So not unless we do effective testing, we cannot be very sure that this is what we are dealing with, right? So we must pay attention. We must be if we want to have a U-tide free from all of these conditions that we're talking about, we must know how to recognize the signs and symptoms and know when it's appropriate to go to the hospital to seek further medical advice.
Okay. Now, we're still going to be dealing with a whole lot of stress, and many people still do not understand how to identify that they are stressed. While for me, for my elder sister, when she's stressed, she will have breakouts. So she just knows that.
At least that's clear for her to understand.
But for me, I can barely understand what causes when I'm stressed, how I feel. So sometimes I'll feel headache. Some other times I don't even know. But it's really hard. So we're going to be going through a lot of stress. Back to what I'm going to ask. The things are more expensive. Children will not understand. They still want to have their clothes, the shoes. You're thinking about that. You're thinking January is just around the corner. You're going to pay school fees. And it's a very long month. And you still have to do
it's the longest month of the year.
In fact,
it's like
that's like 3
days.
months. Like 3 months
yeah,
more.
I understand.
You know, so we have a lot of things going through our minds,
Yeah.
especially as adults. So how do we end up not getting too stressed, and instead of having fun, because we're stressing to get fun for ourselves and the kids, we now end up in the hospital?
Okay, so this would seem a little bit more like a personal opinion. More, you see, the truth of the matter is the U-tide is, I've seen on social media, in media, while I'm doing media monitoring, I've seen that there are some memes online that says it's Jesus Christ's birthday, you know, and not any individual, any other individual's birthday. The reality is, if you cannot do the set targets that you have for yourself, rest. I think one of the best things that anybody can give themselves in the course of any festivity is rest, because in Africa, and particularly Nigeria, we work very hard. We work too hard. So one of the best things we can do is to take time out to rejuvenate our system, right? Because it will not be very, very good if you don't die from coronavirus, you don't die from Lassa fever, you die from stress. And while it may look like a joke, it's actually very, very serious, and it's very possible. There are people who supposedly go to sleep and don't wake up. There are people who also are awake and have other issues. Even while, yes, they may have other health conditions that exist, it is oftentimes stress is implicated in some of these conditions. So not unless you as an individual take time out to rest, take time out to look out for yourself, your overall well-being, you would have a lot of issues. Yes, we know that a lot of persons will be cooking, right? It's important that you can maintain normal brain function. You can maintain a healthy mind, because it's easier to coordinate some of these preparations for festivities when your mind is better coordinated. Because imagine you're cooking and you're distracted. You may have a domestic accident in the kitchen, right? Probably you carry a hot pot, you do not realize that this is that. You have a burns on your hand, or you know, you put oil, you're distracted, it catches on fire, you have a fire incident in your house. So there's a number of situations that will work better with us relaxed. And that will also come from knowing when to ask for assistance. So it's not a situation of, I want to do it all alone. So knowing when we are stretched towards our limits, I want to cook for my entire extended family because I come from a large house. I want to impress them. I want to show them that I'm capable. You do not ask for help. You do not realize that sometimes maybe these persons will be better impressed if you just go out and order food, or go somewhere and eat, or have some fun, or do a picnic, for example. Just buy snacks. And so we need to realize that, yes, certain things are traditional to us. Most persons will cook fried rice, for example. Most persons will do jollof rice, and there has to be salad and drinks. Yes, these are U-tide traditions. But it will not, I don't think it will be a fun U-tide if you spend it in the hospital.
Yeah.
Yes, it will not be fun, and I think the purpose of all of these things will be defeated. So we want to be sure that we're planning in advance. For example, those who will plan to travel, I think now would be a good time to begin to put your vehicles in order, so that you do not go to meet your mechanic says it's fully booked, and you say you want to manage that vehicle on the highway. It will not be great. Or you need to do last minute shopping. So if you can begin to do it now, I think today is the 9th.
Yeah.
You can begin to buy these things in bits. I go today, I buy this one. I go tomorrow, I buy that one. I go the day after, I buy, and then by the time it comes to the 20-something, you can have most or all of what you need to do that cooking, because that last-minute rush is one of the things that increases the peculiarity with this Yuletide, this Ember month that we always talk about, the last-minute rush. And it's something that we need to begin to avoid, because the last-minute rush, not only does it increase the dangers, it stresses the individual out. And stress is a major problem that we need to learn how to avoid in this Yuletide.
All right, Christmas, safety and holiday concerns. That's what we're looking at on the show today. We still have a lot of questions to throw at the branch communications coordinator of the Red Cross Edo State branch. But before we do that, this Christmas period, I always, on Flipside, will play the special documentary on food, because we do a lot of hanging out and eating, and you wouldn't want to embarrass your generation, embarrass your lineage, embarrass your friends by not having proper dining etiquette. So we'll just do this video for you to learn and know how to coordinate yourself, from the cutleries to the wines to what you should discuss on the table, what you should order. Yes, we'll put that one together for you to view. So let's quickly have that documentary on food, and when we come back, we'll focus some more on some safety concerns we have.
Food is commonly used to nourish and entertain guests during interviews, dinner parties, Christmas celebrations, Igwe festivals, wedding parties, Valentine dinner, and all kinds of events. Food gets served. It is one thing to get served and begin to eat like a glutton, and it is another to eat and get admiration from those around. And so, proper table manners are needed for our formal and informal dates. Table manner rules are not complicated, and most importantly, they will help you make a great impression at your next meal. Especially for formal dates or business dinners, immediately you sit at the table, make good use of your napkin. Your napkin is not a serviette paper. It is big, wide, and thick. Place your napkin on your lap. Immediately upon sitting down, unfold it while it's in your lap. And if you want to get up, pick up your napkin from your laps, fold it back, and put it on your table before you leave. If you're hosted in a restaurant, you are expected to order for your food. Now, order something simple and familiar. Study the menu thoroughly before you order, so you don't order what the restaurant don't serve. To show you're ready to order, close your menu, place it on the table, and the waiter will come to you. Don't yell for the waiter like you're at the bus stop. But if it's not a restaurant you're being hosted, maybe a family house, you might not have much choice as to what you want to be served. But try to eat whatever they serve you. Have a taste of everything placed in front of you. And for difficult foods like spaghetti, which is a common food in many homes, you need to learn how to eat spaghetti perfectly. Now, this is how you eat spaghetti. Once your spaghetti is served, don't twirl with the support of your spoon. Always use your fork only. Never cut the thread of your pasta with a knife. And once it gets into your mouth, chew. Don't slop like. Keep the fork in a vertical position. Put the prongs down against the rim and twirl. Rotate the fork in a clockwise direction and lift. Don't overload your fork so you can neatly put everything in your mouth. And now that you've learned how to eat spaghetti, sometimes we eat and we get inconveniences like burn, onion, or we just have unwanted food in our mouth and we want to take it out. Unwanted food is removed from the mouth in the manner in which it is put into the mouth. Food put into the mouth with a utensil is removed with that same utensil. Meanwhile, foods eaten with the fingers, if you must remove unwanted food from such, you would also remove them with your fingers. We all know talking while eating is inevitable, so if you have more than a few words to say, don't speak with your mouth full. Swallow your food, rest your fork on your plate, and speak before you resume eating. Don't gesture with a knife or the fork in your hands while you talk. It is not a battlefield. And also, don't drink with your mouth full. To avoid leaving food on the rim of the vessels, make sure the mouth is free of food and blot the lips with a napkin before taking a sip of your beverage. And now, about beverages and liquids we take at the table. We have different types of wine and different bottles, glasses for them. About wines, enjoy your wine when you're served. Don't rush it once it's poured into the proper glass. Instead, it is time for you to evaluate and enjoy the wine. Evaluating wines involve 4 basic steps: looking at it, swirling it, smelling it, and tasting it. Hold the wine glass up against a white background, such as a napkin or a tablecloth, preferably white, or ensure that the wine glass you're served with is a transparent wine glass so you can see the color of the wine. Red wines should range in color from deep purple to brick red, while white wines should range in color from lemon gold to golden amber. And after you've examined the color, you swirl your wine in your wine glass to aerate it. While you're done with that, you smell the wine. Put your nose in the glass and take a deep breath. Older wines should have subtler aromas than younger ones. And then you taste. To taste the wine, fill your mouth about half full and softly swish the wine around before you swallow. There are different wine glasses for different wines. Watch and learn. This is the first wine glass. It is short and very small. Use it during cocktail parties. In this wine glass is the champagne flute. It is narrow at the top to allow the bubbles from the wine come up and you can see the sparkling clarity of the wine. We also have the white wine bottle. It is wider than the champagne glass but not as wide as the red wine glass. This white wine glass is very portable. We also have this glass for red wine. The red wine glass can come in 2 shapes. It could be a bit round like the white wine glass but definitely wider, or it could come in this triangular shape. The point is the bottom, the base of the red wine glass is always wider than the rim, and this is to allow your wine aerate. You do not hold the wine at the base so that the heat from your hand doesn't alter the taste. You hold the wine glass at the stem. Utensil etiquette is also very important. In most situations, where so much cutleries are arranged on the table, use the outside-in rule to tell which fork, knife, or spoon to use at the dinner table. Start with the cutlery farthest from you and gently work your way in. And if you drop a utensil, pick it up yourself and ask for the waiter to replace it. Don't clean and use it again. But if you cannot reach it, inform the waiter and ask for a replacement. Don't stand up from your chair to go pick up a fallen cutlery. It is wrong. And now, no matter how delicious the food is, do not scrape your plate. Scraping the plate or loud chewing is unpleasant to listen to, and it is considered impolite. Try to cut your food into 1 bite size or 2 bite sized pieces at a time. Don't cut it all like a baby. And when eating soup, spoon the soup away from you towards the center of the bowl. Usually, soup is served in a deep plate or a deep bowl, but please don't drink directly from the plate or bowl. And no matter how hot the soup is, don't blow on it or on a spoonful of soup. Do not slop like very delicious, and never tilt your bowl. Don't fill the spoon too much. Hold the spoon by resting the end of the handle on your middle finger with your thumb on top of it. And now, what you must do is fill your spoon by moving it away from you so it doesn't spill on your dress. Fill only 2/3 of your spoon with soup. Then sip from the side of the spoon quietly. When the soup is over, leave the spoon in the bowl, not on the table. In this era of electronics, please turn off or silence all electronic devices before entering the restaurant. If you forgot to turn off your cell phone and it rings, immediately turn it off. Do not answer the call. Do not text and do not browse the internet at the table. Be polite at the table. A simple "excuse me, please, I'll be right back" can do a lot for you. Do not leave the table without a word. Always be excused before you leave. When sneezing or coughing at the table is unavoidable, just cover your nose or mouth with a napkin and proceed as quietly as possible with the sneeze or the cough. Except in an emergency where you need to blow your nose, please don't use the napkin to blow your nose. Excuse yourself, leave the table, and use an handkerchief instead. Another thing you need to know is that food should be passed to the right or the left, but the point is, food has to move only in one direction. One diner either holds the dish as the next diner takes some food, or he hands it over to the person who then serves himself and hands it over to the next person. No crossing your hands over someone to pass food. And still on how things should be passed at the table, cream pitchers and other dishes with handles should be passed with the handle towards the person receiving them. And also, if someone asks for a salt or pepper, pass both the salt and the pepper. Even if the person asked for just one, pass both anyway. Each time service is provided at a multi-course meal, verbal acceptance is not necessary. But to review service, a verbal rejection of "no thank you" is given. And by the time you're done eating totally, just say "thank you." Even as you celebrate and go for all of these ceremonies, eat wise, eat decently, and be smart. Your body is your responsibility. Please take good care of it.
Alright, so I've tried my best. It's now left for you to do the rest and not embarrass us. Do the right things. Okay, my name is Daisy Leo Asikidi, and I have Oganete Jiri the branch communications coordinator of the Red Cross Edo State branch, and we're talking about Christmas safety concerns, safety and holiday concerns. So he's from the Nigerian Red Cross, and we really need to talk about some things. Now, we see the Red Cross a lot, especially when there are accidents and all that. This particular Christmas period, yearly, the number of accidents, road accidents, always will soar. And last crossover night, so I would even say it's this year, 1st of January this year, in the night, between 12 a.m. to 3 o'clock from this Ugbo road, about 2 accidents we passed on the road when we were coming back from church, where we had the one with the Lexus Jeep that he was really drunk, because after they finished from church, they entered the bar, just shout Happy Christmas and in the Happy New Year in the church. Then you go to the bar, drink away your joy, and then enter the road and you're driving. Now, apart from the risk for the driver, there's also the risk for those who are trekking back from church with their candles and all of that stuff. So let's talk about alcohol, the way we should probably handle it, especially those who are around us that are drunk. And I would also want to know the plans. So we'll start with the alcohol. Then what are the plans the Nigerian Red Cross Edo State has for this Christmas in terms of safety?
Okay, so 2 things I want to point out. First of all, the Nigerian Red Cross is a voluntary humanitarian organization. So we do more than just first aid. We are committed to alleviating human sufferings. So whatever condition causes humans to suffer in our jurisdiction, we try to alleviate that as much as possible. So we have the Edo State branch, which will work within the Edo State jurisdiction, and then we have the NS, the National Society, which would coordinate all the activities of all the branches in Nigeria. So while that is true, I also want to point out something. You see, this thing about alcohol and the youth-tide and driving, it's more a mandate of the road safety. I'm sure the road safety is doing some things in that regard, but we from the Red Cross are particular about instances where it has become a thing of the increase. So we may not actively work on that as a first point of call, but when we notice a trend, we want to ensure that we can pay some attention to it to mitigate that. I've had an instance where I've had to rescue, I think that was last year as well. I had to rescue a family of 5. You know, they had they had bumped into one of these ditches. And if you're familiar with the Ogbo Lagos Road, there's this area where there's the up and then there's the service lane, the express and the service lane. I've had to pull out a family of 5 from, I think it was a Sienna vehicle at the time, and it was a little into the night. I found myself going home at the time. The reality is, while I will not blame that on alcohol, we need to realize that the risk increases under different circumstances, regardless of whether you're intoxicated or not. So, but I want to state categorically that you should not drink and drive. Please do not drink and drive. I cannot stress that enough. So if you know you are going to be at an event where you need to drink, you must get what we call a designated driver. So before you get into all the entire drinking spree, decide who is driving, right? And the person who has been decided will drive. All of you collectively must monitor what that person is drinking, or must instruct, if you're committed to safety, instruct the bartender. This is our designated driver. So the bartender, in their wisdom, would decide how much alcohol to serve that particular person, because they're the ones who drive. And thankfully, we also have this taxi hailing service, all over the place. So it's also easy to also order a cab that would take you home. But be that as it may, you also want to be conscious of other factors, because there's more than just alcohol implicated in RTA. What's the condition of your vehicle? That's one thing. Another thing is daytime driving and night driving are 2 different ball games altogether, because yes, oncoming vehicles can be a problem to you at any time of the day, but it is worse at night, because beyond how the vehicle is driving, you're thinking about the fact that their light can dazzle you as a driver, and it can completely blur out your vision and your sensitivity of where the danger spots are. So if you're not experienced in driving at night, one of the trickiest and easiest tricks in the book you can employ is to drive slowly. But there's always this temptation, especially when you combine an inexperience with alcohol. It's always volcanic, as it were. So you want to be able to drive slowly, not drink. Be sure that you know the road, right? These are the factors. Then beyond the fact that you must have done your pre-driving checks to ensure that your vehicle is in perfect working order. But beyond that, from the perspective of the Red Cross, we, as I said on radio earlier in the week, we're making our plans to ensure that we have our volunteers deployed out. We have what we call safety on our roads. We do that. I was speaking with the branch secretary earlier, Mr. Wilson Etiosa-Ikomogiazi, and he's looking at the possibility of ensuring that we have volunteers out on the roads. But from experience, we know that the rush begins to build up from the middle of December, from around 15th, because persons look at 20th as a significant date. I don't know why. So for anything from the 20th, people are beginning to think it's the Yuletide here already, because you have roughly 5 days to get anything in order. So from 15th is when we're going to be rolling out most of our plans to ensure that we can mitigate some of these, especially the ROTAs. We're not very final on all of these plans yet, because there's so many things to consider. We have a lot of volunteers working already in COVID-19. Earlier in the course of the week, we did livelihood cash transfer programs. We ensure that some of these families, about 300 households that have been affected by COVID-19, we recaptured them for unconditional cash transfer. So we're going to make some monies available to them to at least combat the effect that COVID-19 has had on them. Then while we're doing that, we're also training some teams of persons who'll be working in the field. I think they started work on Monday to do contact tracing for victims of COVID-19. And we also have a third set of teams ready to do psychosocial support to ensure that there are persons, even while you and I are sitting here relatively comfortably, we have persons who have had victims of COVID-19 who have died in their family. So we want to ensure that to some extent we can provide them the right psychological support so they can be happy. So while we're doing all of these things, we also need to train more volunteers that we're going to send out into the field to do the safety on our roads program. So these are all of the things we're looking to do. And you know that it's difficult to deploy persons for maybe like an entire day, you know, to do traffic management. And of course, if they go back home without food to eat, I'm not sure they're going to want to come out the next day. So some of these things cost money.
Yes, it does.
Right, and with the way COVID-19 has gone, nobody expected that the entire year would have COVID-19 smeared all over the calendar. So it appears there is some levels of donor fatigue, as it were. So as an organization, we cannot do all of these things on our own. So we are always interested in the support that we get from well-meaning individuals, government, corporate organizations. It's never too much, because the support that they give to the Red Cross is what will determine how much we can do for immediate communities. I just mentioned that we are doing unconditional cash transfer to vulnerable households, 300 of these households, and we're giving upwards of 50,000, if I'm not mistaken, to these households. So it's a lot. So if you do the mathematics, 50 times 300,
that's a huge one.
And we're making this available. We ensure that we're giving this to the most vulnerable households. And if you notice, most of the persons who stay in the Benin metropolis may not understand so much, because we have gone into the interiors to ensure that we can get these households and capture them effectively in this exercise. So, but it does not take away from the fact that the December is just a month. The events that happen in December are determined by the people who are living in December. Right, so we are the ones who are alive. We are the ones who are doing the things that will decide how December will turn out. So if we're taking our safety into cognizance, I think we'll be careful. We'll plan better into how we are doing these activities that we need to do. Because the U-tide, there will be more U-tides, but those will only exist for those who are alive to see those extra U-tides.
Exactly. Okay, another thing, they characterize celebrations from the 24th, even from now, fireworks, the one we call banga, knockouts,
Yes.
disco.
Yes.
There's another one, rockets, and so many others. And then that's one way for children. And then we, the women, we are in the kitchen, firewood, charcoal, gas, kerosene, and all sorts of materials that we're going to be using. So I'm still going to put two questions in one, like I did before, because we have a short time. So what are some of the safety materials you would advise everyone to get now? There's the COVID-19 case, the Lassa fever, the fire problems, so many issues. So which safety materials you would advise us as individuals, as parents, as adults to get in our homes for the Christmas? And then a little tips on how to ensure that our fireworks and our enjoyment of knockout doesn't lead to a fire outbreak.
Okay, so I'm not very clear on the legalities of these fireworks and all, but I don't think it's too much of a problem. However, I do know for a fact that they pose a certain hazard to us as humans, especially for those who would use what you call the banger and rockets and all of that. Bisco, minimal risk and hazard. But I want to ask a question to the public who's listening right now. For you who's listening, you want to ask yourself one very, very clear and simple question. Do you have a fire extinguisher in your house? It's something that people want to think about, because I'm very sure that there's going to be a lot of frying.
Oh, a lot.
This December. A lot of people like their chicken fried.
Very.
They want their turkey fried. So it's good. It's not a bad thing. But with working with fire and working with heat, there's the increased risk of a fire outbreak. Do you have a fire extinguisher in your house for if that happens? Because it's not God forbid. It's not a matter of it will not happen to me in Jesus' name. Do you understand? We have to be able to ensure that we are taking proactive measures for if it happens. And fire extinguishers are not so expensive, and I'm not even sure any price is too much to pay for your safety and comfort. So even if it's the small type that the drivers put in their cars, I think it's something you can have in your kitchen for if these instances happen. We're not even going to talk about electrical fires right now, because let's assume that you have limited issues with electricity in your house for when you want to do your Christmas lights and all that decoration. But these are all the more reasons why you must understand. And for persons who will do Christmas decoration, because I have to talk about that, I need to emphasize that you should always maintain 3-point contact with your ladder for those who use ladders to do their decoration, which means 3 parts of your body must be touching that ladder at every point. 2 legs, 1 hand, 2 hands, 1 leg. It's important. So if you're going to take 1 step off the ladder, you should ensure that both hands are holding. So that instance of carrying many things while you're going up the ladder, it's really ridiculous, and it's a hazard in itself. And then beyond that, you want to be sure that you have someone else present to hold your ladder when you are doing all of this climbing. It's important because we don't want a situation where you thought, I checked the ladder, I shook it, it didn't shake, it didn't move, and then you climb and you take 2 steps and you and the ladder come to the ground. And then you say, yeah, it's your village people. These are real issues that we have to deal with, right?
Yeah.
And while that's going on, I've talked about the need for a fire extinguisher in the house because that's a very common situation. Then I also want to emphasize that in instances where you have a burn, maybe because you touch hot pot, one of the simplest things you can do is to just dip it in tap water, right? And that will ensure that it's cool. Or you put it under running water, it will help. So the instances where you have to do all of these rubby on top your wound is you rub this one, you rub that one. You say they said it will work, and all of that. Some of these persons do not even have the experience to make some of these claims, right? So the international standard, the global standard, best practice that anybody can do, put it in cool running water when you have touched something that is too hot. And that should be enough to do all the tricks. If the skin gets denatured or disfigured or whatever, then you can seek medical assistance. If you need to cover it, maybe you are tempted to bandage it in any instance. As far as it is heat that has caused that, get like a clean film like nylon, put it on top and transport to the hospital ASAP, and I'm sure they'll be very glad to attend to you. These are like very basic things, but for fireworks particularly, I think people need to realize that, as with most things, you should use them responsibly, right? So there's no point giving them to children, right? There's no point using them near flammables, petrol, and all those things, because then you cannot blame village people for all of those things.
All right. Okay, thank you so much, Ogenete Jiri Uwigo, for being my guest on the show. When we always bring Red Cross, we have more than enough to talk about. So we'll now be pressed for time. There's so much on security, on safety that you would want to learn. But it's okay. You all know that it's your duties to keep yourself safe. I'm not going to be the one. I'll take it as a primary responsibility. It could be a secondary responsibility because your safety eventually has a way of affecting me. But I want to make myself safe first. So do all you can to ensure that your family is safe. You're safe, your husband is safe, your children are safe, they're playing with the right things, they're getting a safe toy for Christmas. It's not everything you're going to gift to a child. Make your research well, browse, go on the internet and research things before you bring them to your homes. You're bringing things that are coming from a store where everyone has touched them, disinfect them before you give it to your kids who are going to put it in their mouth. I mean, you have a toddler in the home, you need to be very, very careful. Well, next week we'll still talk about Christmas, but this time I think we'll be focusing solely on food. I'm Daisy Lira Sikidi. I will be back next week and I hope to see you there with me. Bye.